morning, Egg.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you are in. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
Joe, quick thing before we dive in today. We need to put out a little error correction statement. So please bear with us if we make a few slips here and there.
Yeah, we actually we made a little promise poster for this exact reason.
Right, because, I always tell you, our Sip and Talkers, that your eyes are sharp. But maybe you're all just a little too polite, or maybe you're busy driving or washing dishes, so you don't really have the time to type out corrections in the Apple Podcast reviews.
Exactly, yeah.
But, admitting that we sometimes make slips, it kind of sounds a bit like those Silicon Valley tech startups right before the tech regulations came in. You know that vibe, like, hey, as long as the system doesn't crash, let's just pretend the code has no bugs.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we've been caught. No, but honestly, every time I go home and re-listen to our recordings, I do occasionally get a little, panic attack. I sit there thinking, oh my gosh, was that data I just cited a little too optimistic?
Yeah.
Or did I oversimplify that historical background just a bit too much?
Which is completely normal. From the perspective of information communication and cognitive psychology, even if we rigorously cross-check all our authoritative data, from Bloomberg or the New York Times right before recording, our brains can still just, overheat.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially during these highly intense, real-time conversations. Verbal slips are they're going to happen. And that is exactly why we released that promise poster in the news statement recently.
Right. And I feel like this transparency is exactly what separates Sip and Talk from all those, high and mighty global news shows. We don't need to pretend to be omniscient gods here. We just admit that we can and will make mistakes.
Transparency in action. Because in today's social media environment, creators who actually dare to publicly admit, hey, we might be wrong and we're ready to correct at any time, they're actually way more trustworthy than the channels that claim to be infallible.
Yeah, totally. It's the only way to build real trust.
It's the core attitude for breaking out of information bubbles. So to all our engineers and detail-oriented sip and talkers out there, if you find my co-host here misquoting data or notice a slight discrepancy in my historical background, please go to the YouTube comments and help us debug.
Yes, please do. So this poster is essentially our bulletproof vest and our confession letter combined.
Speaking of confessions, just a quick side note. Last week, someone said blueberry anthocyanins could make you fly. After a listener fact check, we can confirm this was just a hallucination. We strictly correct this.
I am being very serious right now.
Yeah.
Very strict. We are keeping both feet on the ground.
I love it. All right, well, enough chatting. Let's jump right into the mission of today's Sip and Talk. We are tracking some of the most massive trends right now. Financial data, the new tariffs, geopolitics, and, just everyday economic realities. And speaking of our brains overheating earlier, it actually looks like the stock market is currently trying to correct its own overly optimistic, overheating expectations when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Oh, the AI spending jitters. Yeah, the markets are incredibly jittery right now.
Mm-hmm.
The NASDAQ dropped over 1% recently, and Intel, they slumped really heavily down over 4%.
Wait, but looking at these numbers, Intel actually beat expectations, didn't they?
He did, yeah.
Because they showed a massive 59% year-over-year growth in their data center and AI segment. And Alphabet, Google's parent company, they raised their capital expenditures by 4% and showed this incredibly strong cloud growth at 82%.
Right, which sounds amazing on paper.
Exactly. These numbers are fundamentally fantastic. So why is the market panicking if the raw growth is actually so good?
It really comes down to the underlying mechanics of how these companies are funding that growth. Investors are just terrified by the sheer volume of cash being burned right now.
Just burning cash.
Literally, to physically build these AI data centers.
Yeah.
Because when a company raises its CapEx, its capital expenditures, it means they're pouring cash into physical, tangible assets. We're talking about acquiring massive tracts of land, building, industrial-scale liquid cooling systems, and buying servers that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each.
Okay, so isn't Alphabet basically just buying a $10,000 commercial espresso machine for a tiny home kitchen? Sure, it makes the best coffee in the world, and you have the absolute best tech on the counter, but how many lattes do you have to brew and sell to your friends before you actually see a return on that massive upfront investment?
That is the exact multi-billion-dollar question people are asking. Investors are looking at the balance sheets, they're seeing free cash flow drop, and they're wondering if these tech giants are just overbuilding a kitchen they don't have enough customers for yet. However, you have industry veterans like Sandra Rivera, she's a former Intel VP, and analysts like Mandeep Singh, And they argued this isn't just a hype cycle. The demand is actually structural.
Structural meaning it's changing the very foundation of how businesses operate.
Yes, exactly. Because AI isn't just a slightly faster search engine anymore. It is enterprise-level workflow automation. Yeah. These tech giants are essentially laying down the railroad tracks for the next era of the economy.
Wow, okay.
So they have to buy that commercial espresso machine. Because if they don't build the infrastructure now, they won't even have a kitchen to operate in a few years. Yeah. So massive capital sink today, sure. But the strategy is that the return will materialize when AI is baked into everything.
Like global banking or telehealth or whatever?
Exactly. Everything.
So these tech giants are betting their entire balance sheets on a future payoff. But, it's not just the stock market questioning their timelines right now. Governments are actively trying to kneecap that growth today through macro trade barriers and tariffs. We are watching this massive tariff wall go up.
Oh, the tariff wall is very real. Trump is implementing a new round of 10 to 12.5% Section 301 tariffs on roughly 60 different economies right now.
60? That's huge. And Section 301, that's the specific tool in our U.S. trade law that allows us to enforce our rights and penalize foreign countries for unfair trade practices, right?
Exactly. And the official justification they are citing for this really sweeping move is forced labor in international supply chains.
But there is a much wider net being cast here because we are explicitly targeting the EU as well.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Because we're initiating an investigation into the EU since they are heavily penalizing American tech giants. Europe is using their new antitrust rules to slap Apple, Meta, and Amazon with massive fines. I mean, they just dropped a recent $1 billion fine on Google.
Right, which is just staggering.
And Trump claims that the EU is essentially robbing American companies and, by extension, robbing American taxpayers.
And if we pull the lens back, this whole leverage tactic isn't just happening across the Atlantic. Right next door, Canada is facing massive 50% tariffs on items ranging from milk to hockey equipment and even plywood.
Hockey equipment? Seriously?
Yep, hockey equipment. Furthermore, the renegotiations of the USMCA, our major trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, they mean that we will now take 50% of the profits from the Gordie Howe Bridge, the one connecting Detroit and Canada.
Hold on, I have to push back on the fundamental math here. Because if we are utilizing tariffs as a geopolitical leverage tool, taxing all these imported goods from Canadian plywood to European electronics, doesn't that just mean everyday Americans are paying higher prices at the register? Like, is this secretly just inflation by another name?
Well, this is a really crucial point about how global trade mechanics actually function in reality. Fundamentally, yes, adding a tax to an import is inflationary. But the reason you haven't seen an immediate catastrophic price spike at your local checkout aisle is because of how supply chains operate.
Okay, how so?
Right now, a significant portion of those tariff costs are actually being absorbed by foreign supply chains who are working off excess inventory.
Meaning they already built the goods and just have them sitting in warehouses somewhere.
Precisely. Anticipating these very trade barriers, they stockpiled goods. Yep. So rather than raise prices immediately and lose their hard-fought market share here in the U.S., these foreign companies are basically taking a hit on their own profit margins to keep consumer prices stable in the short term.
Oh, wow. Just to stay competitive.
Right, because building an American customer base takes decades. They won't just abandon it overnight. But, eventually, once that excess inventory clears, the math catches up, and those costs will absolutely trickle down to the consumer.
Right. And speaking of costs trickling down, let's look at the staggering financial toll of the munitions we are expending right now in the Middle East, because this is another massive hidden economic drain.
The situation there is intensely volatile. We are currently conducting our 13th straight night of airstrikes on Iran. And this follows Iran recently rejecting a ceasefire proposal that was actually delivered via Iraq's prime minister.
But paradoxically, despite a major conflict happening in a vital oil-producing region, global oil prices are actually dropping.
Which is so counterintuitive.
Right. Brent crude fell below $97 a barrel, which is providing some unexpected relief to the global markets. But meanwhile, our U.S. defense contractors, companies like RTX and Lockheed, they are seeing significant bumps in their stock prices.
And there's a very clear mechanical reason for those defense stock bumps. We're witnessing a staggering depletion of U.S. weapons stockpiles right now. The Pentagon is currently $28.8 billion short of its munitions request.
28.8 billion short.
Yes, because we are firing highly sophisticated, incredibly expensive interceptors and offensive missiles at just a rapid pace.
And there's a geopolitical angle here that complicates the cost even further, because Trump recently stated that China and Russia promised not to sell weapons to Iran.
Yeah, but defense experts are highly skeptical of that promise, because even if they aren't physically shipping over crates of hardware, they are highly likely targeting telemetry to Iran.
Wait, telemetry, meaning the raw data required to actually hit a target?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because in modern warfare, data is the ultimate weapon. An older missile becomes highly lethal if it's guided by state-of-the-art satellite data. So providing telemetry allows adversaries to drastically increase the effectiveness of their strikes without, leaving a massive paper trail of physical weapon shipments.
That is wild. But here's what genuinely confuses me about this whole conflict. We have the most advanced Air Force in human history. We've been bombing Iranian launch sites for 13 days straight, yet they just keep firing back. How is that physically possible? Wouldn't we have destroyed their capability by now?
You would definitely assume air superiority wins the day, right?
What?
But it really comes down to a highly effective strategy of passive defense. Iran doesn't leave its missiles sitting out on a tarmac for our satellites to see. They utilize this incredibly complex maze of underground missile cities.
Missile cities? Like actual subterranean bases?
Yeah, imagine a vast network of tunnels built deep underneath mountains, entirely immune to standard aerial bombardment. On the surface, there are just small, camouflaged, pop-up launch holes.
Oh, wow.
So they drive a mobile launcher to the hole, fire the missile, and immediately retreat deep underground before any retaliatory strike can even hit the location. This asymmetrical tactic makes it nearly impossible to destroy their entire arsenal purely from the air. You'd almost need boots on the ground.
So we are spending billions on high-tech munitions to basically hit empty holes in the desert.
Pretty much.
That is wow. Okay, well, moving from the astronomical debt of global defense, let's look at the massive costs lurking in our own homes. Specifically, the ultimate long-term investment that so many families stress over, which is higher education.
Higher education is facing what can only be described as a perfect storm right now. The Trump administration is cracking down on student visas, which is a massive blow to university balance sheets, because international students often pay full tuition, essentially subsidizing the schools.
Right.
They're also cutting federal research money and placing strict new limits on federal lending, specifically for graduate students.
It's just a massive disruption. And you see elite universities like Yale, Penn, and Harvard bypassing these restrictions by setting up their own private lending systems for their students.
Which they can afford to do.
Right, because of their huge endowments. Meanwhile, smaller schools are scrambling to create cheaper online AI programs just to survive and keep enrollment up. But if you want that traditional ivy-covered brick building experience at a top-tier school like a Cornell or a Wellesley, you are looking at costs upwards of $100,000 a year.
Which forces families to figure out how to navigate this incredible financial burden. And a lot of the conversation right now is weighing traditional 529 savings plans against the newly proposed Trump accounts.
Right. For those who haven't followed the policy proposals closely, what exactly is a Trump account?
So it refers to a proposal to create a new, free online educational institution called the American Academy. And the idea is to fund this free academy by imposing heavy taxes on the massive multi-billion-dollar endowments of elite private universities. It's being pitched as this debt-free alternative to the traditional college system.
Okay, let's look at the terrifying math of the traditional system for a second. I saw a projection that an elite college could cost $800,000 for a child born today.
Yeah, that number is everywhere right now.
I mean, is saving $800K even realistic for a normal family? Or is the entire system fundamentally broken?
I know that $800,000 figure induces pure panic, but let's contextualize it a bit. First, only about 40% of students actually pay the full sticker price.
Oh, really? Only 40%?
Yeah. The vast majority receive some form of aid, grants, or scholarships. Second, the tools you use to save really matter. You should think of a 529 plan not just as a standard savings account, but as a financial Swiss Army knife.
Wait, how flexible is a 529, really? I always thought the money was completely trapped if the kid didn't go to a traditional 4-year college.
That's a super common misconception. It's incredibly flexible. You can use it for trade schools, for one. It covers qualified expenses necessary for the education. So, for example, if your child is a music major, That 529 plan can legally be used to purchase a high-end guitar because it's considered required equipment.
I had no idea you could buy a guitar with that.
Oh, yeah. But the biggest game changer actually involves retirement. Because of recent legislative rule changes, if your kid gets a scholarship and doesn't need all that 529 money, it is no longer trapped. You can actually roll unused funds directly into a Roth IRA for them.
Wait, so you are essentially using tax-advantaged education savings to jumpstart their retirement decades early?
Precisely. You get to leverage compound interest. The key isn't necessarily reaching $800,000. It's starting as early as possible so that time just does the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, so we have families terrified about saving for future education costs. But let's pivot to what people are actually spending their discretionary income on today. Because the contrast between long-term anxiety and short-term spending is fascinating.
It really is. Because despite the persistent complaints about inflation and the cost of living, the wellness industry is absolutely booming right now. And what's most surprising is the demographic driving this growth. It's heavily concentrated among people making under $30,000 a year.
Wait, the lower income demographic is driving the premium wellness boom.
Yes. Brands like Vital Farms and Good Culture are seeing massive uptake here. Private equity firms are really noticing this trend and heavily funding what they are calling the democratization of wellness. It's moving from a luxury niche reserved for the wealthy to a mass market staple.
Speaking of wellness trends, here is one that really caught my eye recently. Olive oil shots.
Oh, the Ghostrina shots.
Yeah, exactly. These little single-serve shots of extra virgin olive oil are just everywhere right now, popularized by celebrities like Hailey Bieber. They are harvested early, which means they're absolutely packed with antioxidants called polyphenols, and apparently they aggressively burn the back of your throat when you drink them.
Yeah, that burn actually means the polyphenols are working. They are really powerful antioxidants that fight oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. And people are increasingly treating their daily food intake as preventative medicine. They are shifting their discretionary spend toward these high-quality daily health habits, like a premium egg or an olive oil shot, rather than saving up for traditional luxury items.
But here is the paradox. At the exact same time they are buying olive oil shots, people are sparing absolutely no expense for massive cultural and entertainment experiences. Have you seen what's happening with IMAX tickets for the new movie The Odyssey?
Oh, the secondary market prices are just wild.
They are selling for over $500 a ticket.
Unbelievable.
And over in the sports world, the money is just as huge. LeBron James just signed with the Philadelphia 76ers for his 24th NBA season. Meanwhile, private equity firm Harbinger Sports, which is Mark Cuban's firm, by the way, they are buying a minority stake in the Las Vegas A's baseball team.
It's because sports teams are no longer just athletic franchises. They are essentially becoming massive live entertainment and real estate plays. People desperately want that communal, larger-than-life experience.
But how do you explain the psychology here? Because we constantly hear about Gen Z doing financial nihilism or retirement maxing, meaning they are saving every single penny because they feel like traditional milestones like homeownership are just entirely out of reach. Yet these are the exact same people dropping $500 to sit in an IMAX theater just to hear waves crash in high definition. How do those two behaviors exist in the exact same person?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually makes perfect psychological sense. When the macroeconomy feels completely overwhelming and a 30-year goal like buying a house feels mathematically impossible, people pivot to what they can control.
Okay.
They prioritize high-quality, immediate daily habits like that premium olive oil shot to protect their health. And they crave unforgettable, visceral experiences that make them feel connected and alive in the present moment, like a $500 movie ticket. They're basically just rejecting the mundane middle ground of consumerism.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, before we wrap up today's conversation, we definitely need to explicitly state that we are not investment experts, and all the financial data and market trends we discussed today are purely for reference.
Absolutely. And to add a warm clarification here, nothing we discussed today, whether regarding tariffs, geopolitical conflict, or domestic policy, was meant to criticize or discriminate against any specific country, group, or people. Our goal is always an objective exploration of the facts to encourage critical and independent thinking.
Beautifully said. We want all our sip and talkers out there to stay curious and just keep questioning the narrative. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit that subscribe button for the Sip and Talk podcast. And hey, make sure to check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. for the absolute latest and greatest travel vlogs.
Yes, his videos are fantastic. Highly recommend checking them out.
So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to explore on your own. If wellness is democratizing to the point where health is truly the new wealth, and people would rather spend $500 on a fleeting 2-hour movie ticket than save up for a tangible luxury like, a designer watch, are we witnessing a complete redefinition of what status actually means in the modern economy?
It's a really fascinating shift in human behavior.
Definitely something to ponder. See you next episode.